Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
And we begin Local 4 News at 5 with a major blast of bitter cold on the way. Temperatures tomorrow morning are going to feel like it's double digits below zero, and it isn't looking much better for the weekend.
Now to live pictures from our mobile newsroom in Midtown Detroit. It's been a rough start to winter, and now it could be getting rougher thanks to a shortage of something critical to keeping the streets clear. We'll get to that story in just a moment, but first we're going to begin with the forecast. Get ready for the coldest weather of the week.
Yeah, right now wind chills are right around zero, but that's going to feel balmy compared to what's coming tomorrow. Let's start things off with Ron Hilliard. Hey there, Ron.
We're looking at some very cold weather, Damon and KG. We have those temps that are in the teens like they've been throughout the week, but now the wind becomes an issue once again. That wind bringing those wind chills down to -15 and in some spots -20. Right now, look at the airport. It has been snowy and gloomy, typical of winter, but this cold is not typical for us. We are at 14 in Detroit, 11 in Pontiac, 14 in Grosse Ile, and 10 in Port Huron. Those winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, mostly out of the north. Now, those wind chills right now down to around 5 above and 5 below for most of us. We have 5 at Metro, 7 in Monroe, down to -6 in Sandusky. That will be going down even more. That is the reason that we have the cold weather advisory for communities north of 8 Mile starting at midnight tonight and going through tomorrow morning. I'll show you where we have some of those coldest wind chills and also more about the weather conditions coming up in a few minutes.
Okay, we'll talk to you in a bit, Ron. Thank you. Now to the impact this weather is having. If you've noticed streets not being salted this winter, it isn't just because it's too cold for the salt to work.
Yeah, it turns out salt itself is in pretty short supply right now, and there are multiple reasons why. All right, so let's get out to Khalil Maycock. Khalil, what did you find out about this one?
Yeah, I spoke to some people who said the reason why they don't have salt, which is like a small business owner, he says is because his supplier is having difficulties getting it. And I also spoke to some road commissions, and they tell me some, they have salt, while others say they're experiencing that shortage as well. Plowing snow and then salting right after is something Marcus Carr says he's had to do a lot this winter season.
It's been very busy.
Carr is the owner of Stonewall Landscaping and Snow Removal. Though he's been busy, he says lately it's become hectic. It's what he calls a salt shortage. And Steve, with Great Deal Products, is saying the same thing.
There's been a national salt shortage that we've been dealing with here for quite some time. And it's continually just compounding and getting a little bit more difficult to secure product anywhere in the United States or Canada.
He's someone who buys salt and then resells it to smaller buyers like Carr. I also wanted to know how this salt shortage is impacting the counties in our area. So I reached out to 5 and heard back from 3. Wayne County says they're not experiencing a salt shortage. Oakland County says they're not experiencing a salt shortage either, but have an issue getting resupplied. And Macomb County says they're experiencing a shortage. They couldn't get me an official amount of how much they've used so far, but they did say they've used between 30,000 and 40,000 tons of salt this season. And if we go back to Carr, he says with the salt shortage means the price he has to pay to get supplies has gone up. And to stay in business, he has to pass that on to customers.
Beginning of the season, salt was around $100 per ton. Now we're looking at north of $300 per ton. So that's the problem that we're running into. So we have to pass that price on, or we won't be able to survive out here.
And when I spoke with Macomb County, they mentioned that typically 20 municipalities purchase salt from them, but they did say this time they can't do that because they're having to hold that salt for themselves to be able to salt their roads. Reporting live in Detroit, Khalil Maycock, Local 4.
All right, Khalil. Our other top story tonight, families forced from their homes in this brutal cold as fire ripped through an apartment complex over in Southfield. It happened at about 2:45 this morning at the complex on Providence Drive. That's right in the area of 9 Mile in Greenfield.
So let's get out to our Jay Scott Smith. Jay, more than 24 people had to be rescued from the building.
Yes, indeed, Damon and Kim, and we're actually outside of the complex right now. You kind of see it over my shoulder. That's just some of the damage that happened out here, and this is not the way anybody wanted to start their day. And as mentioned, more than 24 people are going to be looking for a place to stay headed into this bitterly cold weekend. It happened here at the Oxley Apartments across from Providence Hospital on 9 Mile Road in Southfield as dozens of residents started their day with firefighters banging on their doors, telling them to evacuate.
I woke up to them knocking on the door, being on the door, saying everybody had to leave, that our apartment was on fire.
Darlene Spencer stays here at the Oxley. Her door was one of many kicked in by firefighters, and she was able to make her way out. The fire alarms went off just before 3 a.m. as apartments started filling up with smoke.
I had some damage done, some smoke damage as well as physical damage done to my apartment.
The 3-alarm fire had crews using ladders to get residents off of multiple floors. Fire crews from Royal Oak, Madison Heights, Ferndale, Bloomfield Township, and Birmingham all assisted in putting the fire out. But unfortunately, it also left a number of families out in this bitter cold weather.
We have 9 families negatively affected by this fire. And at this time, we're trying to make sure that they get temporary shelter and possible transport to those shelters with help from Red Cross.
By this afternoon, the damage was evident on one side of the building, with a number of windows either broken or opened up and plenty of smoke damage. 27 people have been displaced, along with a couple of dogs, but for Darlene Spencer, she's happy that no one was seriously hurt and knows it could have been a lot worse.
I thank God, I skipped that material stuff. I'm happy that I'm still here and everybody that was on my floor is safe.
Now, unfortunately, Darlene is not going to be spending this evening or even the next few evenings over here at the Oxley, and a lot of people were displaced, as mentioned. The American Red Cross is helping people out in this situation, especially since it's going to be so cold over the weekend. Anybody who needs help, who was affected by this fire here at the Oxley, is asked to call 1-800-RED-CROSS. We're live in Southfield. I'm Jay Scott Smith for Local 4.
All right, Jay, now if you thought we were having a rough winter, you might want to think again. Take a look at live pictures from Marquette up in the UP right now. So far this winter, folks up there have seen 156 inches of snow. That's more than 13 feet. The total is also more than Marquette's annual average for the entire winter. And keep in mind, it's still only January.
Calls for calm seem to be getting answered tonight in Minneapolis. Both the White House and border czar Tom Homan say work is being done on a drawdown plan on ICE activity in the city. This comes as new video shows Alex Preddy having a previous run-in with agents. Julie Sirkin is tracking both angles tonight from Washington.
In Minneapolis, a change in tone from the top.
And what we've been working on is making this operation safer, more efficient, by the book.
President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, now in charge of the immigration crackdown in Minnesota, replacing Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino after weeks of violent clashes between federal agents and protesters and the shooting deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
I don't want to see anybody die, even the people we're looking for.
Homan says he's working to decrease the number of federal agents in Minnesota, but that move would come with conditions. That protesters keep things peaceful, and that Minnesota helps the feds locate undocumented immigrants with criminal records.
I'm asking them to be cops working with the cops to help us take criminal aliens off the street.
Elected officials who oppose the Trump administration's aggressive immigration tactics say they've seen no reduction in federal agents so far.
Are we hopeful that there will be a drawdown in the force that we're presently seeing in this invasion in Minneapolis? Absolutely. I'm hopeful. Do I expect the conduct to immediately change? That is my expectation. That is what we are insisting upon. But again, I'll believe it when I see it.
The backlash over the shooting deaths of Good and Preddy reaches all the way to the U.S. Capitol, where some Republicans have joined Democrats to demand Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem resign or be fired.
It's not a secret that I have problems with the Secretary of Homeland Security and the way that her failed leadership has led to unconscionable results in Minneapolis.
Results which could lead to a partial government shutdown this weekend.
The motion is not agreed to.
Senate Democrats, united after Preddy's killing, now refuse to support funding DHS unless changes are made in how ICE operates. At today's cabinet meeting, President Trump signaled he's willing to negotiate to avoid a partial shutdown.
Well, I think we're getting close. The Democrats, I don't believe, want to see it either.
Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News, Washington.
And jury selection is picking back up tomorrow in the Dee Warner murder trial. Her husband, Dale Warner, has been charged with her 2021 killing. He's also accused of hiding her body in a tank on his property. More than 700 people in Lenawee County received jury summonses for this case. The selection process could take up to 2 weeks.